To me, it is definitely a myth as far as not being able to get in shape or build muscle and so forth. You can do it at any age. As much as I hate to fail, I had to go through the processes of failing to really get a lot of experience and to understand what it was going to take. One of the biggest things too, I would say, that I didn't touch on that is so important is sleep.
All right, greetings, y'all. Welcome back to Living Once Twice, the place where we rewrite narratives, reinvent ourselves, and reimagine our lives. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Before we dive in, please be sure to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also YouTube, giving us a follow on Instagram at Living Once Twice, where you can view more great content, including information on all of our amazing guests, like the guest that I'm going to be bringing on today, which is Tommy Schneckenberger. Tommy is a fitness and life coach, real estate entrepreneur. Through sharing his own physical transformation journey, Tommy has established his own online coaching program to provide others with the support, inspiration, and tools they need to transform their lives and discover their best selves. Tommy, welcome to the show, brother. How are you
No,
doing?
I am doing great, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm really grateful to have you, Tommy. I know this is kind of like a year in the making as my little guy came early, so we had to put the pause on doing this a year ago, but here we are, 2025, doing it. And before we jump into all the great insight that you've got to share with our audience, just want to give the folks context as I met you, Tommy, as a part of our collective family, Fit Fam. I know it's been a while since we've all hopped on bleachers together, but it's just such a great tribe to be a part of and continuing to be connected to you and seeing your journey and what you're doing on to really help people make this area a positive transformation in their lives. It's really, really inspirational. And so I'm just grateful for your time and the insight that you'll be able to share with our audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those are definitely times that both my wife and I cherish with our group. So,
Likewise, likewise. So Tom, you have a lot of insight to share with our listeners. We're going to talk about everything regarding setting up a vision, putting in the work to make that vision a reality, in the process of just making major improvements in your life, but the building blocks to doing that. But where I want to start first is really your transformation journey. So I would love for you to just kind of like take us back and share with us like what was the turning point for you when you decided that you wanted to make a change in this area of health and wellness in your own life?
yeah, when I look back, my biggest transformation actually came in the beginning of 2023. But to give you a little bit of the background, I've always been very active. I consider myself an athlete. I participated in so many sports growing up, all the way through high school, and then a little bit of junior college. So I've always enjoyed the competitive sports and also the training. And one of the things I can tell you is that when my wife and I started our family very early on. So we started our family when we were both 19, and I got into the electrical industry, and that was after playing 1 year of college basketball. And I never lost the love to work out. So even when I was in the electrical industry, one of the things, and the reason I share that is because in that scope of work, there's always a lot of movement, right? So in that job, I know that we're always on our feet, we're moving, and even with doing that scope of work, I was always religious about working out. So I've always enjoyed it. And then about 10, I would say about 10 years after that, I actually joined my wife into real estate. And that's where things changed a little bit with the movement overall. It was a different type of scope of work. A lot of times you're either driving behind a car, you're in front of a computer. The movement's a little bit different. So still continue the workouts. But one of the things that I can share is that because of a crazy schedule behind the real estate and working at different times of the day, I found myself sometimes not staying as religious with the workouts, and then the foods that I would eat were just kind of all over the place. So I know what it's like to be in that situation where you have so much going on as far as on your schedule throughout the day. But I can tell you that my workouts overall throughout the years has always been there, but I can never dial in the food situation. So my wife and I both love to eat out quite a bit. And, especially as a realtor, after a meeting or so, whenever you can find something to either stop at a restaurant, whatever, we would do whatever it took just to get a meal in. So just to kind of speed things up, it got to a point in 2022 that I told my wife, Jeanette, that I wanted to do this transformation program. That was a year program, and she also signed up with me. So we did that in 2022, where we actually had our own fitness coach and our own dietitian. So I learned a lot during that time. But one of the biggest takeaways was we during the program, the workouts were totally fine, but we were giving numbers as far as our macros, and that's one thing I think is so important for us to learn, that I can share more about, is just learning more about our macros and our calories and overall everything like that. But it was one of those that we were given the choice to work with macro numbers to meet, and we were expecting to be able to lose weight and go through a process of lean cutting. And we did it for a whole year, and the results just did not. I didn't get the results that I had envisioned. And the same was for my wife. But you know what? It was such an amazing experience, because even though it didn't work, we both still had the drive to find a way to really figure out what it's going to take for us to get in the best shape that we possibly can. And that's when it happened in 2023, when Jeanette, my wife, found a fitness coach online, and he had helped another realtor that she follows that recently had a baby, and turned around and lost tremendous weight, and was looking terrific as far as what she was able to do. So that's where we met our fitness coach, Coach Sam, and I jumped on a call with him. And one of the biggest differences that I found right away was his approach was very direct and simple, and at the same time, it was one that he told me exactly the foods that I needed to eat in order to get the results that I wanted to get. And that right there was the biggest game changer for me. So, yeah. My biggest takeaway from that is I I think that for the longest time I had thought that I could do it on my own, and it really wasn't until I started investing into myself and realizing that even the first time around, even though it did not work in 2022 like I thought, I still took away and learned so much. And by the time that we actually started again in 2023, it truly came full circle for us to get the results that we wanted. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you took us on that journey with you, Tommy, because there were so many pieces of your story that, and this is why I'm so happy that you're doing this, because a lot of folks are going to be able to resonate with. First, just going all the way back to being an athlete. Many of us who've been on a fitness journey, we've got some sort of athletic background, whether it be high school, college, whatever it might be. But then you talked about what happens, lifestyle happens, changes, and you talked about everything from becoming a parent to then even the career that you in. I think many people could also relate to the pandemic and many folks working from home where your routine is impacted, where maybe you used to have more of an opportunity to get out and about, and now you're kind of at home, stuck behind a desk, and things have kind of fallen off. And then you also talked about where I didn't think you were going, where the first program that you mentioned, the outcome wasn't the results that you anticipated. And it's easy for folks to maybe sign up for a fitness program, even a year-long one, but then if they don't get those results, be discouraged about that journey and maybe think something is wrong with them and kind of give up and wave the white flag. But you didn't do any of that. And so where I want to kind of pivot next is, I know we're talking about like the outside transformation, but something I've heard in your story of like the mentality piece, like you didn't lose that fire, you didn't lose that desire mentally. And I think so much of our physical journey, and I love your post, so much of that is mental.
mm-hmm.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts about, like, before you could have this outside transformation, how interconnected is the mental piece, your mental wellness, your mindset, how important and interconnected is that before you start really, I guess, seeing the results on the outside? Like, was that a part of your journey, or is that something that is just in your program that you see is really important for someone's mindset to be right?
Yeah, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. And I think that that would be my biggest takeaway is the mentality part has to come first, really to the point where I think what has really been the biggest drive for me is knowing that I had the vision of what it was that I wanted, and I didn't necessarily know exactly how I was going to get it, but I kept sticking with it. You know, being very open minded to learn, to understand that as much as I hate to fail, I had to go through the processes of failing to really, get a lot of experience and to understand, what it was going to take. But the mentality is it definitely starts with the mentality of really focusing and understanding that our thoughts are so important in what will create our results. A lot of times we think it's circumstantial, and I can definitely tell you, no matter which way you break it down, it ends up falling truly to the thoughts that we have. And I think that's the biggest part for many out there that are having some challenges, are hitting obstacles. It's really to focus in, and that's one of the things that my wife and I also focus on is we are also life coaches as well, and we understand the how important it is to change our mindset when it comes to anything that we're going to tackle and take on, because our minds can take us in so many places, and the more that we can stay focused and really be very intentional about where our thoughts are, it makes a world of a difference.
And that's kind of what I want to I want to parse out some of those like myths or some of those mental hurdles that maybe you work people through. Starting with one that I know is like an easy one where folks might say like, okay, yeah, when I was in my 20s, it was easier to work out, but now I'm in my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and they think that it's too late to get back into shape. Is that a common struggle that you foresee, and like how would you work and help someone get through that mental hurdle of thinking it's too late for them to get in shape, or at my age that ship has sailed?
Yeah, no, I hear it quite a bit, and I think that the biggest thing that I would share is that it doesn't matter what age. We have seen so many examples. I'm so thankful for what we have on social media, where we can see tons of examples of people that are much older in age being able to change their lives with getting more fit and creating that structure for themselves. And it to me, it is definitely a myth as far as not being able to get in shape or build muscle and so forth. You can do it at any age. It does. I would say for a lot of people out there that are dealing with those kind of issues, I definitely feel that it any training itself is never going to be easy. So whether it was me in my 20s or doing it now as I'm approaching 50, it's still you're still going to have a lot of challenges when you're working out. But I think it's more about embracing the workout and really just falling in love with the process more than feeling like it's something that is just unattainable. So
And I'm glad you talked too about the aspect of like, let's be real, like it's working out, it's work, it's it may have moments where it is uncomfortable, but you talked about how you like were able to keep a vision. And I know another mindset hurdle that people can struggle with is like, oh, and it's gonna you sign up for like a year-long program. So someone could be like, wait a minute, it's gonna take me a year to get into shape. In your work, Tommy, does that also trip people up of them thinking like, oh man, it's gonna be a year or 9 months. I don't have that type of time to dedicate. I know we live in a microwave culture where people want results quickly, but how would you also support someone who's a little bit hesitant because it seems like it's this overwhelming mountain to climb of like, oh, it's going to take a year for me to finally get into shape.
yeah, yeah, I think that a lot of programs may be set up that way, where it may be a 1 year program. The program that I coach actually is a month to month program. that I have with clients. But really, one of the things that I found working with many people is we all have our own journey as far as how quickly we would like to get somewhere. So for someone that really feels like I can definitely tell you that like it can be done sooner than a year. I think when I went through my transformation, I was able to reach my first goal in 90 days. With
If you mind
three.
sharing what that was, Tommy, like where you
Yeah,
started and where were you at the end of those 90 days?
yeah. So I really what it was is I was basing a lot of things off of when I competed in competitive sports. So I knew my weight at that time, which was a lot of times in high school and in college. So I was always around a 210 as far as weight wise, and I remember what that felt like. And before I started my transformation, I was at my heaviest. I was actually at, let me see, I was at 257, and in 90 days, I was actually able to drop down to 210. So, and going through that process, I can tell you that it seems so far away, but when you have your structure and you know exactly what you're going to do each and every day, and you set out exactly like your meal plans and your workouts, all of a sudden you're not looking at it so much as far as a year out. You start looking at it more like a day by day, but almost like winning the week, right? So it's like that's one of the things that I try to share with my clients is like let's look at this week coming up and let's focus on making this just a great week. So it's really just knowing that it starts with creating that momentum for yourself, and that momentum is so important to build off of, and not to look so far down the road, because trust me, it if you stick with it and you stay with it, you're going to see the results, and it's going to come a lot faster than you know it. I think it's more when we get into situations where we're second guessing and we're allowing our mind to really play games with us, thinking that we can't do something, or it's too much of this or it's too much of that, I can't, then it's one of those that those kind of thoughts can get in the way from you just being able just to keep it simple, and look at something as far as just like on a weekly basis. So yeah.
And I want to amplify that gem there where you like help people like break this thing down smaller of like just win the week because those weeks stack up over time. And for you to share like what was it, almost 50 pounds in 90 days, if
Yeah,
I'm kind of roughly doing the math right.
yeah,
And yeah, that could seem like a lot of time, but compared to a year, if you just win those 12 weeks, it's incredible this transformation that you talk about that people could go on. And going back, Tommy, earlier in the story, you talked about kind of like two pieces of the puzzle. There's the fitness side of it, and then there's also the diet side that you kind of are building a structure around. So do you mind sharing too for you, like what did that look like? Those two kind of pieces of the coins, like how many days a week were you working out, and what was the structure of your diet that was helping you lead to that significant change over that 90-day period?
yeah. So that also goes back to each and every individual, that if you were to get on a program, you can really select how many days a week you would like to work out with the weight training. One of the biggest takeaways that I have fallen in love with as a habit is knowing that I do cardio every day. And cardio, a lot of times for many people, it's something that they do not like to do. But I also think that it's also what we consider to be cardio. And the thing is my daily cardio can definitely consist of doing a cardio routine or workout on a treadmill or a stairmaster or some sort of machine, but at the same time it could also be just literally walking outdoors, and the most important part of that is really for our heart health. And I can tell you that with the weight training, when I approached the program, I wanted to do as much as I possibly could. So I literally decided to do a 5-day split where I worked out 5 days a week with the weight training, and I took 2 days off of the weights, but every day was cardio. And there's different setups where people can do it 3 days a week, and there's times that we can figure out more of a lifestyle for each and every individual. But the most important part to me, the takeaway, was just incorporating a great meal plan. And then, to me, hands down, like the non-negotiable ends up becoming the cardio, just to make sure that we're keeping that movement every day. And it's one of the best habits that I was able to form.
And I
So
want to amplify something you mentioned there about like the definition of like cardio. I mean, it really could be so many different things. And I appreciate you sharing that, because you could hear that word and think like, oh, now I got to start running, but I don't like to run, or my knees don't work like that anymore. But you letting people know, like, they could have a little bit of, they could kind of customize what cardio might be, whether it's a walk, whether it's yoga, whether it's a Stairmaster. Like, there's so many different forms that they could take. So do you find that people's, as you're helping them rewrite that narrative, they're starting to find more joy in something that could also seem like, I don't want to say like a chore, but something that could seem so like, maybe cardio is not everyone's like cup of tea, for example. Like, as you're working with people and you're helping them to understand, like, oh yeah, just going on a walk or around the block or whatever is your thing, like that is okay. Like, do you see that like lowers people's defenses and actually like creates more of an engagement and wanting and like enjoying this process?
absolutely. And it goes back to, like you said, just thinking outside the box, not feeling that it has to be jumping on a machine. It could be anything. I've had clients do a lot of dancing. I've had clients do
Mm,
Zumba, swimming. Swimming is incredible. So there's so many different ways to create the cardio, and make it fun, and something that you can turn to. That is the most important part, is just being able to create the consistency. So, and that's the part. I personally, myself, I like to use the machines, but 3-4 times a week, I may turn around and switch it up completely differently, and get outdoors, and do something that doesn't require for me to be in a gym. So
yeah. And speaking of the point of consistency, there's this great video that you've got of the late great Kobe Bryant, in which he talks about how he discusses that he's not negotiating with himself. Like, when he set out on a task, I think it was his own training, he talked about like, yeah, sometimes the mind will trip you up and you want to maybe sleep in, or it's like, hey, I'll do those 2 sets tomorrow. So as you talk about consistency, how does one maintain that consistency when the fickleness of the brain kicks in, and maybe you've put together 6 weeks, and then you're just having this one week where you're like, you know what, I've paid my dues. I could kind of I could go lax a little bit. I could put off a workout one day. What's one day gonna hurt, or what's one or two cheat meals gonna hurt? Like, how did you, or if you struggle with that, like, did you have to overcome any of that fickleness of the brain, or how do you support your clients through that when you feel that side of you, that little thing on your shoulder that wants you to kind of like ease up off the gas a little bit?
yeah, we all have it, and it's always going to be there. And I think, for me, the way to make it an easier process is forming the habit. So the more consistent that you can remain and stay, and continue, whether we're talking about the daily cardio, or if we're talking about the foods that we're consuming, the more consistent that we can stay, the more focus that we will become. And it's so much easier to be able to stick to our game plan when we are up against some of those mental challenges of thinking that, oh, I just don't have it into me, I don't have it in me today, energy wise. Maybe my schedule is a little hectic today. But it's one thing I can tell you is, like, it doesn't have to be perfect all the time, but it's so important to stick to the basics of keeping your systems in place, with the most important part, and that's taking care of yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. When I posted about the non-negotiable, I really have turned around and looked at it like, this is something that is non-negotiable, because it's for me. A lot of times I would put other situations, others, to feel like it was an emergency and I had to do these things before I took care of myself. But I really dialed in the fact that I can only do so much, and the most important part is for me to take care of myself so I can do the things that I want to do and help others as well. So that's my non-negotiable as far as my workouts. First thing in the morning when I wake up.
Ah, okay, okay, got you. And that's also important to let people know too. Like whatever that non-negotiable time is, continue to honor it. If it's the morning, if it's your noon break,
So true.
if it's your evening, like just making sure that that time block is dedicated. People need to know that, like, hey, you're unavailable during that hour because that's that hour dedicated to you. So I love that practice that you're offering to people.
Absolutely.
Now, changing gears a bit, you talked earlier about like macros and food, and so what I could hear folks saying like, "Oh man, now does this mean I need to start measuring my food?" So I would love for you to just explain what macros, what is that exactly, and then when it comes to the aspect of diet, are we talking like people got to give up everything? Like, are you allowed to still keep some of your favorites around and lose weight? So we'd love for you to just explain more about that terminology and just kind of talk about the approach to food, because I also know like the diet piece is a significant part of it, but that could also trip people up if they feel like they've got to now live off of broccoli and celery and water.
Yeah. So I think it's just more of an understanding of, so the macros, the way we break it down, really are just our three main components of understanding our proteins that we consume, our fats that we consume, and then our carbohydrates, and along with our calories. But the thing I would share with you is that I have found that when I had the ability to pretty much just kind of, I didn't have a structured plan when it came to foods, and I had the ability to pretty much choose whatever I wanted. I thought I was eating healthy, and that's the part that is really hard to say. A lot of us, we have different ideas of like what healthy is, but what I can share with you is one of the biggest changes that I took away is being a little bit more strategic and calculated as far as like what I was consuming, how much I was consuming, and even the timing of when I'm consuming is so important. I find it super helpful to spread the meals out throughout the day, and that's where the meal prepping comes in super handy within the program. And the reason is because I found myself not consuming, say, a meal for several hours because of my schedule, and then by the time I had a moment to eat, the foods that I actually was consuming was just way over the top. I mean, it's something that that was the first thing I could find, the first thing I could think of, and the indulging then started when it came to foods. So I find it personally like I'm so excited to know that like I can prep my meals at home. I'm able to choose what it is that I'm consuming, how it's being cooked, and to me that's so important. But to answer your question, it doesn't. I think that goes back to people. A lot of people are under the impression that if they go on this particular type of diet, that they're not going to be able to eat the foods that they love and enjoy, and and I can tell you really what it comes down to is starting with making the changes for yourself to eat healthier, to give your metabolism a better chance to really be able to get ramped up. And once you start realizing like the foods that you're consuming that I find are very healthy, we incorporate what we consider like refeeds. And refeeds are meals that can be along the lines of something that's a little bit outside of our normal go-to meals throughout the day, and it plays an incredible part where we can still drop weight when we consume. One of my favorites as an example is a burger and fries, right? I can eat a burger and fries all day, right?
Right there
So
with you on that.
so something like that, we could turn around and have a refeed of a burger and fries, and we can still drop weight. So it can happen. And one of the things I can share is that when you start when your metabolism is ramped up and it's going, you could turn around and have meals that you had in the past that were one of your favorites, and we encourage it, but at the same time, it's you'll start to see, you start to question and start to realize, like, how do you feel after it? So it really depends on the foods that you're eating, and that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is, as much indulging as I did not realize how much foods affected me with my overall energy, the weight that I would put on, and so forth. So yeah, but to answer your question, everything in moderation is important. And if your goal is to lose body fat, and you would like to go through a process of going through a lean cut process, then you're going to want to sharpen on the meals that you are consuming, and it all comes down to what your overall goals are. So, and that's where we work from.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of things I want to highlight here. The three things that you talked about was what you eat, how much you eat, and the timing as well. So I think that's like really good for people to like think about as maybe they're doing maybe like an audit of their own habits and thinking about what needs to go when they're eating, kind of what's taking place, to be a little bit more self-aware and mindful about it. And then also that aspect of like how is what you're eating making you feel. But when it comes to like the whole food part, and you kind of helping address some of that misconception out there that like people are going to have to like really kind of sacrifice everything, as it's not like, as long as they're doing it in moderation, obviously sticking to the structure of their fitness plan, I mean they can still enjoy things. So, but with, we're almost in October, and we know we're about to get ready for the holiday season.
Yeah.
So how does one then navigate that aspect of it, where you're going to be around a lot of good food, a lot of people's favorites? Like, how did you navigate that journey, the Thanksgivings, the holidays, the Christmas, all that type of stuff, and still kind of, I guess, maintain your plan? Did you struggle? Do you have any strategies or tips to offer people in preparation for the holiday season coming up?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say, one of the things is you will find that we have holidays and celebrations pretty much like throughout the year. So you have to be so we can always find something to have a reason to eat outside of our meal plan. But when it comes to like the traditional holidays, I think like for Thanksgiving, Christmas, so forth, I have no problem with clients being able to enjoy themselves during those times with their family and friends, and being able to enjoy the foods that are there. It really goes to the overall structure and plan that one has created for themselves. So if if you're on a lean cut program, a lot of times you're going to find that leading up to maybe that holiday, you have been eating extremely well, you're feeling great. So by the time you do have a meal for Thanksgiving or anything like that, it's time to enjoy, and you're not gonna. There's no reason to have any like guilt or anything like that. It's a pretty incredible thing to be on a structured plan, and then to be able to enjoy the meals. But to answer your question on what I would do, I literally would start thinking about what are the foods that I really want to enjoy, and that's where we all can be different. But I know for me, it's like I enjoyed eating the turkey that was made. I enjoy, I'm for me, I'm not big on mashed potatoes as an example, but I will turn around and I will enjoy the sourdough or the bread or whatever is there. But you're gonna once you start figuring out where you are with the foods that you're consuming, you'll know exactly like what you want to partake in and not. And it doesn't have to be weird or strange either. It's something that I actually feel extremely grateful and confident when I am eating out, or if I am at a function.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, these are masterful just insights, Tommy, because you're helping to people understand like, yeah, you don't have to like, you can go into these holidays with like no, that guilt and that shame about treating yourself and enjoying the good food that's around. For me, it's like the sweet potato pie, stuff like that. And but you want to strategize, you want to plan accordingly, you want to think about it. Another thing that could be consumed during the holidays, really at any time of year, is like alcohol. So like when you work with clients, how does that come into play? Do you like how do you kind of coach them through that? Is that also in moderation? Like any thoughts that you would offer there?
Yeah, I can tell you from my experiences, the alcohol actually, I found it to really slow down and take away from all of the progress and work that I was doing when I was actively in the gym, working out extremely hard, and then still feeling like I was eating healthy. But at the same time, I like to celebrate as well and indulge as far as if it came to the fine wines or the beer, the IPAs. But what I would recommend is understanding that there's going to be those moments that might be something that you enjoy and do. And I feel that when you can create moderation and you can create like a game plan as far as like, hey, if I am going to consume, I'm going to do something that's a little bit less carb driven. You know, it's going to be something that I may just have a glass of, champagne or something different. You can always get strategic when it comes to consuming alcohol. I have gotten to a point where I have a very low consumption of alcohol at this stage, and I truly enjoy it. And I'm just so happy to be where I am in that process. But at the same time, I can tell you from my experiences of celebrating and being at functions and stuff like that, I also know that there's ways to consume, but not go overboard either. So
Yeah, and what sticks out to me, it goes back to a point you raised earlier about like also being mindful of how you feel, as obviously it can maybe impact your ability to feel ready to go work out the next day, or just how you feel mentally, and then just kind of being on your game. And so I would love to hear your take on like your diet being more than just what you consume food wise, but it being the maybe the TV shows you watch, the music that comes in, the people you're around. Like what's your take on that in terms of like your diet, is whether it be on the fitness side of it or even on the life coaching side of it, is your diet being so much more of like the other inputs that you've got coming in, and how that also can affect you physically, mentally, spiritually?
yeah, no, it all, there's so many, everything will tie in together. And I feel that one of the biggest takeaways is you want to do the things that you love and enjoy. And for me, I love the training aspect. I love to work out, and I've learned to love the foods that I'm consuming. And to tie it all together, I can tell you it is important to create a lifestyle where what we're doing is also taking away as much stress as possible. So I believe in recovery. I believe in making sure that we can, whether it's literally the walks that we talk about for cardio, whether you're out and about just literally going for a walk, breathing the fresh air, is so important. Massage is important. Any stretching is huge. There's so many things that go together to bring this all full circle. But I think that the biggest takeaway is also feeding the mental part of your mind, and really finding ways to create that place where you're the happiest, and you're feeling empowered, you're feeling excited. And you talk about friends. It's when we talk about friends in our circles, it's being around those that can help you be able to live this type of lifestyle, and at the same time not, for me, what I've learned is I've also had to create this myself. I literally had to switch gears and say, as much as I think I need to go and be at the next event or this and that, I've literally made it a point to take care of myself first, and then really look at and assess what it is that I'm going to align myself with, moving forward. So yeah, it all goes together. One of the biggest things too, I would say, that I didn't touch on that is so important is sleep as well. So I've always taken it for granted. And I would, a lot of times I would push as far as going to bed a lot later than I wanted to, and then still trying to wake up very early. And I might get in 5 hours sleep typically was something that I would experience in the past. But literally being able to increase those hours and really try to push that sleep to 7 to 8 hours has been absolutely a game changer. And that really helped out with the stress and then also the recovery from all the workouts.
Yeah, Tommy, that's a huge share there. Like just talking about like kind of this hidden factor here that you folks and you even talk about just taking it for granted is the whole sleep piece and sleep hygiene. And so like, yeah, is there a certain like kind of like ritual to make sure you like you get right? Do you turn off all the electronics? Do you like just to make sure that you could sleep and have restful, restorative sleep as well? That's a part of your sleep hygiene practice.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things I do, I literally have made it a point where in the past I may have started to try to go to bed like around 11, closer to midnight. Now I've changed it to where it might be closer to like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And that has been a big game changer for me. But as far as a ritual, yeah, keeping the lights off, even the cell phone, keeping it in another room and putting it on the airplane mode and stuff like that. Just really just staying away from it and allowing myself just to wind down has been a game changer as far as sleep goes.
Yeah,
So
no, this is why I'm glad to have you on to kind of let us into your genius and how you're making this happen. But there's like this holistic aspect of it: the food, the fitness plan, but then sleep, which is something I think many of us do take for granted and goes under the radar. So, oh, you were going to say something, Tommy?
yeah, and then also, one of the things that I had the hardest time doing, but I've learned to fall in love, and it's become a habit, is even just taking a 15-minute nap. I
Okay,
know,
bringing
and I
those
know that
back.
sounds strange
Yeah.
because I fought it for so long, and I never wanted to take a nap because I figured by the time the evening rolled around, I would just be ready for my normal process of sleep. But I have found at times in the middle of the day, just closing my eyes 10, 15 minutes has been a huge game changer as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, I'm glad you mentioned that. Bringing back like naps. I mean, we make little kids do it, so it's like we as adults, why are we thinking like it doesn't serve a purpose and benefit to us? So I'm glad you mentioned that.
yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times I think, we think that it has to be a lot longer than that, but literally 10, 15 minutes is really been a game changer. So,
Yeah. So before we get into the each one teach one, something I wanted to go back to because you talked about like maybe for yourself, you started to do this journey alone or thinking you had to do it alone, and then shout out to Jeanette and Jet because you mentioned how she was also a part of your journey. So I would love to hear like what's your take on the importance for people to not go on this type of fitness journey alone or to get plugged into a community into a coach because I could see people maybe whether they're hesitant because of where they're at currently and some of their own insecurities about that, getting plugged into a community and starting to kind of measure themselves against others. What would you say though about the importance of just finding community and not going on this journey by yourself?
you know, I really feel that community is huge. Community is important, and I have found so much joy in being able to do a lot of things on my own, along with finding the community that is also very supportive and helpful. We've experienced it as a group when it was one of the best experiences that we had that included you, Justin, when we were with the we considered our fit fam that we would work out together at Edwards Stadium in Berkeley. And to me, those were one of the most amazing experiences because I just fell in love with the process of a big group of people there just to work out, enjoy each other's energy and company. Never felt any kind of judgment. And what was most amazing was pushing ourselves at times that we wanted to possibly stop or quit, but seeing that everybody else was still moving forward and doing it. And a lot of times that motivated us to keep going. So I think finding a good group as far as people that you can work out with is incredible and wonderful. And I see that a lot of times, even in different classes, different gyms where you can join groups and work out together, and it's pretty amazing. And at the same time, I also believe that the individual side of it, if you're looking to have like a structured plan, it can be done on your own and individually. But one of the things that I would recommend is talking to a coach and having someone there for that can help lead you in a sense of if you have any doubt when it comes to exercises or form. And it played a tremendous part in my situation where I tried for so many years to do it on my own, and I absolutely fell in love with the process that I had my coach there with me when I went through my transformation. So, but it's a great thing to have like-minded people that are looking to do the same thing and to be active and to stay fit. And when you can surround yourself with that group of people, it's definitely an amazing thing to have. So.
Yeah, well said on that front, just about the impact and the influence of just being around that energy, that supportive environment. Like, no one's there to necessarily like challenge you in a good way, push you in a good way to be your best self as you're going through your own individual personal journey and doing that. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing to be around. And so for folks to know, like, you don't got to do it alone. You can do it in addition to your own individual work, obviously finding a community to get plugged into, a coach that can support you. And as you mentioned, even with the mental pieces, where you do get tripped up
Yeah.
and maybe you do want to push off that workout or whatever it might be.
And it's funny. I look back and I think about when I first started in the gym, and for those that are scared and thinking different thoughts as far as what to expect, and feeling like there may be judgment or concerned about feeling a particular way, I can tell you that there's so many amazing people out there that are always willing to share, are always willing to help out. That was the biggest thing that I learned when I first started in the gym is I was just an open book to talk to people and really take the feedback on a lot of times on certain exercises that I was doing, kind of really just getting some good explanations on what they do when they're doing a particular exercise and form and stuff like that. So yeah, I just feel like there's always a way to just get out there and get going, and there's plenty of amazing people out there to help.
So Tommy, thanks for that. So what we'll do is we'll transition to our each one teach one question. So I got a couple rapid fire questions for you. So you ready for the first one?
Yeah.
All right. So what's one book, podcast, or resource that you would recommend that's been a game changer for you in your journey?
The mental, it's more of the mental part of it. I became a life coach, and I literally fell in love with the organization of the Life Coach School, and that was ran by Brooke Castillo. And Jeanette, my wife, introduced it to me, and I just absolutely fell in love with the podcast because it really spoke to me on so many levels, as far as like a lot of the roadblocks and a lot of the things that we have going on with our thoughts and the mentality part. So that's one thing that I would highly recommend that's been a game changer for me is those podcasts.
Great, great. Appreciate that recommendation there. The next one is what's one habit or practice that has been very impactful for you in your lifestyle design?
Okay, well, we talked about the cardio, which is daily, but my first habit to me that's been the most important since day one for me is making my bed every day.
I remember you telling me about that one years ago. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's one of those things
Wow.
that it's like, hey, when I wake up, the bed is made. When I come home, it's there made. So it's one of the best things ever. So
Oh, I love that building block right there. Because what does that signify to you?
man, I tell you, it's one of those things that it just makes me feel like I already won the day. Like it's one less thing I need to even worry about. And by the time I get home, it's just a great feeling to know that it's already in place and made. So yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one, Tommy. So, all right, what's one law or policy that you would make that everyone would need to abide by?
Oh man, let's go with everybody needs to do 30-minute cardio. All right. No, I just I don't know how to answer that one, but I definitely feel like on the level of what we're facing as far as people and dealing with so many issues with the foods that are out there, the food industries. I just think that it's so important to really take our health so importantly. And my biggest encouragement is to be active and to stay moving, keep the movement going. And I would cater to making sure that 30-minute cardio is done by everyone daily.
And remember,
So.
folks, as you mentioned, everyone can choose. They get to kind of, pick their poison when it comes to that. It's not just, it doesn't have to be like burpees or whatever. So I think that's a nice caveat to that.
Yeah.
And so the final question is, since this season's all about personal transformation, letting go of that which does not serve us, whether it's beliefs, behaviors, etc. What's one final takeaway you'd like to leave listeners with when it comes to transforming their lives and discovering their best selves?
One of the things I touched on that is so important is invest in yourself, get a coach, and just know that the mind shift is so important to commit to that process and not to commit halfway, not to be partially in, but completely in with your decision. And that's the part that I can tell you was the biggest game changer for me is the minute that I had the second go around on my transformational process, I was 100% vested, and it didn't matter. I was going to do every single thing to get there no matter what. And that's the switch that we need to have in our mind frame, that we owe it to ourselves to invest in ourselves. So,
Right on with that.
yeah.
Right on with that. Love that. So speaking of that investment piece, Tommy, like, do you mind just sharing like what's next for you? Where can people go to learn more about you, about your offerings?
Yeah. So to find me on the fitness coaching, you can find me on Instagram, which at Tommy Transforms. And a lot of times that is a platform that I'm using. I'm really good at stories, so I'm going to get better with my posts and everything of sort. But
The stories are fire, by the way, Tommy. So I appreciate
yeah,
those. I appreciate those. Those are amazing.
no, thank you. No, I really enjoy it, and can definitely be found there. And what's next for me? I'll tell you, I am really enjoying the coaching that I am doing right now. But I was talking to my wife before, and I've gotten to a point where I've always talked about bodybuilding. So that may be something I'm going to target and shoot for as a goal. And I can guarantee you that's in the near future. And I will have a coach for that. And that's the part is take that was one of my goals that I've always wanted to do. So that's something that will be in the near future.
Sweet. We'll look forward to that journey and you sharing and you just letting people know like, hey, you're hearing from a coach, folks, who's getting a coach. So it's kind of like
So
these are
important.
the winning strategies if you're trying to do this and do this right.
Absolutely. And just to have that structure, I tell you, it's everything. So yeah.
Cool,
But
cool.
I Justin, I thank you for just having me on here. This is such an incredible platform, and to be able to share it with you and everyone that's listened to the podcast. I just wanted to take a moment just to thank you very much and share that with you.
Yeah, no, it means a lot. I thank you, Tommy, because again, you were part of this beautiful collective of human beings. And I remember back in 2018, I got to have the opportunity to like interview you for a separate passion project. And here we are getting to do this. And so you taking the time to just share with the audience, it really means a lot in terms of how they could create this path for themselves, demystifying some of the myths and misconceptions that are out there that trip people up mentally on the fitness journey, or if they feel like they've fallen off and they can't get back on, you letting them know like, no, there is a path to building back up, and you letting them know that they don't have to do that process alone, which I really appreciate, because at the end of the day, it's all about all of us transforming ourselves to be the best version of ourselves. And this conversation, I know, will give people inspiration to getting on that journey and seeing what they can evolve to and become. So, folks, that is it for today's show. I'd like to thank you all for your presence and tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share Living Once Twice podcast on Instagram, LinkedIn, leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as YouTube. Also, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Living Once Twice for more content updates. I'll also be sure to include all of the links that Tommy discussed so you can learn more about his great work and check out his Instagram page. Reaching out to you all through the time and the space that separates us to say, remember, your dream life is waiting for you. It's time to go for it. You deserve it. Catch you later on Living Once Twice.